Good morning, good morning, good morning. I hope everybody's having a great Thursday morning. You heard the music. It's a little after 9 o'clock, so you know what time it is. It's time for the workplace here, exclusively on KBF 88.3 FM, Voice of the People Community Radio. I'm your host for the workplace, Toney Orr, and as always, the workplace is sponsored and underwritten by United Labor Unions Local 100. Also in studio is my lovely, beautiful, intelligent Black woman, Denise.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. I'm so glad to so glad to be in the space with you all this morning.
And so first of all, I just want to thank everybody for tuning in this morning. Also, I just want to let you know that even though our Players Drive is over, you still have the opportunity to contribute a donation on Players to KBF 88.3. March is our membership month where we are encouraging our listening audience to become sustainable members of KBF 88.3 FM. So you can still give. You can do it three ways. You can go to www.kbf.org. And while you're there, when you click the donate button, become a sustaining member of KBF. Your monthly contribution, whether it be $5, be $50, whether it be $500, it goes to the sustainability of KBF. We are all volunteer workforce. Nobody gets paid. Every penny that comes into KBF goes back out to make sure that the electricity is paid, to make sure that everything we need to operate gets done. So if you also can call 501-372-6119, and more than likely you'll talk to our longtime program director, the legendary John Kane. You can give your donation or your pledge that way. You can also send a check or money order to KBF, 2101 South Main Street, Little Rock, Arkansas, 72206. And if you're just out and about and you just want to stop by the studio, you can come to that same address, 2101 South Main Street here in Little Rock, Arkansas, 72206. Come upstairs and you can give your pledge or your donation in person. And as always, we'll make sure that you leave with something tangible, something that will show our appreciation for you showing up in the space here at KBF. Before I get to my announcements, I'm gonna give my co-host Miss Denise opportunity to speak to all of you, and if she has any announcements, she can go ahead and give them.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much. I just wanted to acknowledge the message that came in from Philip Brown about the fact that the LEARNS Act has passed. So we need to know that it has now been signed into law. LEARNS Act from the governor, which it's an acronym. So it stands for literacy, empowerment, accountability, readiness, networking, and safety, all of which we know is not true about this act, but want to let you know that it was signed into to law. So we have to respond in a different way now that it's on the books.
Okay, thanks, Denise. So my first announcement, this is from the Metropolitan Housing Authority. They had introduced some new emergency housing voucher forms. And so if you are in a situation where you need an emergency voucher, get in contact with Kiana Jones. She will be the point of contact for all things pertaining to the emergency housing vouchers. If you have any questions, concerns, or need any assistance, you may contact her via phone or email. Also, if you need some emergency voucher forms, she also sent me some, so I can print those off for you if you need it. You can get in contact with me at 501-247-3869 and just let me know, and I can email them to you, or I can bring them to you, or we can meet somehow. I can get those to you. And so the telephone number is 501-340-4714. That's 501-340-4714. Or you can email kjones1. That's KJONES Jones1, the number 1, at mhapha.org. That's mhapha.org. Or you can probably go, or you can go by Metropolitan Housing Alliance at 100 South Arch Street here in Little Rock, Arkansas, 72201. Also, the American Legion Post 74 is having their Fallen Hero ceremony. It's a tribute to those who have served and who have sacrificed their lives for their military service or for this country. The ceremony will take place on April 15th, 2023 at Sherwood Forest, 111 West Maryland Avenue in Sherwood, Arkansas, 72120, and begins at 10:30 a.m. That's once again Sherwood Forest, 1111 West Maryland Avenue in Sherwood, Arkansas. And if you want to also make a monetary donation to Michael Van Johnson Jr., American Legion Post number 74, send any check or money order to P.O. Box 15664, North Little Rock, Arkansas, 72231. You can also make a PayPal donation by opening the link on the website. And the monetary donation goes to helps homeless veterans, boys and girls state delegates, elementary school supply drive, classic car show fundraiser, holiday food baskets, and Christmas toy drive. Once again, you can reach out. You can give a donation to send it to a check money order to P.O. Box 15664, North Little Rock, Arkansas, 72231, or by PayPal. So phone lines are open 501 433-0088, 501-433-0088. So yesterday, talking about the LEARNS Act that was passed, this morning I received a email from former Judge Wendell Griffith. He is actually in Tallahassee, Florida this morning, giving a speech to public educators in Florida about the dismantling of public education, not only in Florida and Arkansas, but across the country. And in the blog, he talked about this new LEARNS Act, but he also gave a history of public education here in Arkansas and in Florida. He talked about the Brown versus the Board of Education decision. He talked about how long it took from that decision to actually get schools integrated here in the state of Arkansas. But he also talked about, which was something that piqued my interest. He talked about how in 1957, when the Little Rock School, 57 or 58, when the schools closed down, when the school board closed schools, and then they offered public money to students who wanted to go to another school because the schools were closed. history repeats itself. Yesterday, there was a rally, there was a protest at the state capitol. And it's ironic that the majority of the students who were there and who spoke were from Little Rock Central. For those of you who may not know, last week, over 1,000 students, teachers, and alumni gathered at Little Rock Central, and students did a walkout. Over 1,000 students did a walkout. Over 1,600 students signed a letter that was delivered to Governor Sanders expressing their concerns about the Learns Act. And one of the things that was said yesterday is that this Learns Act, which is now law, is kind of ironic because they're talking about this Learns Act, but what have these legislators who voted for this bill, what have they learned? Have they looked at the history of segregation here in the state of Arkansas? Have they looked at how public education has been marginalized here in the state of Arkansas? And for them to come up with this or even sign off on this bill, it is, to me, very, very problematic. And so yesterday at this rally, it was very, to me, it was very exciting. It was very moving to see our future, which is our young people, engaged. And they had a variety of students from all ethnic groups, all genders, all sexual identities speaking. And like I said, it really moved me because I do a dual role as a community organizer and as a union organizer. And I see how the community has to be involved, but also I see what this act is going to do to teachers, because now it repeals, part of this bill repeals the Fair Dismissal Act, which was an amendment in the Constitution that stated that no teacher could be unfairly dismissed, that they had to have a hearing, they had to be notified if they were going to be dismissed. But now part of that bill repeals that. And even though they threw this little caveat in and said, well, a teacher can have a hearing if they're dismissed, but it also states that if a teacher's contract is not renewed, then there's no hearing. And so I think the majority of teachers, and can correct me if I'm wrong, Denise, I think the majority of teachers are on contracts, year-to-year contracts. And so if an administrator or a principal or someone does not like you as a teacher or doesn't adequately feel like you are teaching or a good teacher, all they have to do is not renew your contract. They don't have to fire you. They don't have to dismiss you. They just won't renew your contract. And if that happens, then there's no recourse. But I just want to talk about how you, the listening audience, feel about all this, because when you start to look at it, it's nothing but a circle going back to those days. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Well, look here, this is Brother Willie, and I got there too late. I tried my best to get there. When I got there, they had disassembled, and I was hoping I would get a chance to see Sister Denise. I never saw her in the flesh. Just only heard her beautiful voice and that magnetic brain power she got, and her compassion for people. Of course, I got a chance to say a few things to you. Well, the children is the legacy, and they are the extension of you and I. But I want to say something. I'm from old school, from Cross County, and I grew up in the 50s, and I got married in 62. We took the power from the teachers. We really did. I mean, the teachers don't have no counterparts. Now, all they can do is just show up
Thank you, caller. So, Denise, I know you had an educator um, before, and you work with children at different schools. I know on Tuesdays we talk about the different schools that you work with: Oak Grove, Daisy Bates, and
College Station.
College Station. So, as an educator, how do you feel about this bill? I know there are some other things that um, uh, that this bill contains that may be advantageous to students or maybe advantageous to teachers. But overall, how do you feel about the Learns Act?
So first, let me make sure that I get this. I appreciate the question. Let me make sure I get this this comment in from Lo, who's on Facebook. The Little Rock only has 98 emergency housing vouchers, and there is a waiting list. And so I know you made the announcement about the vouchers being available, but he wants to make sure that we know there are only 98 of them, and there is a waiting list for them. So I wanted to make sure that I added that to the conversation. I also want to bring in these couple of comments from Phyllis Brown before I answer your question. You asked the question about talking about the legislators, have they looked at public education? And response is, it was designed. And so we're asked it, and this is the part that I'm adding to her comment. We're acting like the legislators are like they're just coming into this space where they're taking a look at things and they're trying to figure it out, and this is their approach and this is their strategy and this is how they're going to move forward in their ideas about education. And that's not the case at all, because she does agree with you that it is a circle, going back to what Judge Wendell Griffin said. So for us to act like we're waiting for them to learn something, well, they've learned all that they want to learn. They've learned the fact that they believe that they are superior, and they are afraid of what the country is showing them about themselves, that you are not superior after all. This is a lie and it's a myth that this entire country is built on. And so now they're grasping at straws to hold on to the power, which is why the caller is saying give the teachers the power. They don't want to give anybody power. They're holding on dearly to this power, and it is causing our demise. And so when you ask me the question about how do I feel about the act, Mr. Willis said he was looking to see me yesterday, but he would not have seen me because I was at College Station yesterday while you were at the rally. And so it's interesting how all of these things come together, because what I was doing at College Station is starting with the bullying situation that you can find in the movie Zootopia. I'm using this bullying situation so we can name what it means to name the situation. We can name the players in the situation. We can identify and locate ourselves in the bullying situation, because what I'm going to do is parlay that into conversations and lessons about social and emotional learning. But I had to start here. And one of the things that came up with the students is that many times the person who is the bully is the person who is going through something themselves. And so when you think about this Learns Act and how the governor is acting like they want to empower students, the governor is acting like she wants to hold people accountable, but the situations and the circumstances that are surrounding the educational environment for students outside of the classroom play into what's happening on the inside of the classroom. And it has a lot to do with the relationship between the students and the students and the teachers, the students and the faculty. Like, all of this is part of this big circle that we're talking about. And so having to give space for students to name their concerns, to name their trauma, to name their oppression, to name their discrimination, we have to give voice to that so that we can help them address what it is that's going on with them that causes them to act out in the ways that they do. And so when you talk about what it means to be an educator, it's overwhelming to be an educator right now, because we can't just deal with the lesson plan. We can't just teach our class. We've got to be all things to all students at all times in all places. And not only do we not have the financial resources to support us, we don't have the material resources that we need, nor do we have the administrative support that we need. And so teachers are just, I don't know how they're handling it. I don't know how they're not buckling under the pressure. Well, I know how they're not, because we are trained as teachers to keep the main thing, which is the children. And so that's what teachers do. And so what I mean is I don't know how they aren't buckling. What I mean is that I don't know how we can continue to watch them deal with all of these pressures and not be moved to act.
Well, and that brings up, listening to you brings up another question, because part of how this Learns Act is framed is that you're telling parents that these failing public schools, they keep using that term, failing public schools, and they give a grade, a grade to these schools, a D, a F, a A, or whatever, which puts in the minds to a lot of parents that the school isn't doing what it's supposed to do, and the teachers aren't doing what they're supposed to do, which is far from the truth. And because when you frame it like that, and you start talking about these vouchers, you start talking about these private schools, it makes it seem like that, okay, if my child goes to a private school, then somehow my child is going to do better. And especially when you talk about Black children and poor white children, if they get opportunity to go to this private school, automatically things are going to be better for them. But you brought up this point, which that some people overlook, but in reality they see it, is that what's happening is all the other stuff that's circling around that child. You talk about lack of resources, you talk about unaffordable housing, that they have to move constantly. You're talking about food deserts. You're talking about inadequate neighborhoods. Inadequate.
I think you said inadequate.
Inadequate.
I think that's what you mean.
And so when you look at that, that's still going to fall. That child goes to private school, those issues still have to be addressed.
Yes, but here's the difference. I have a cousin, my first cousin, Candace, is also an educator in South Carolina, and she is a teacher at a predominantly white school. And so here's the difference. When those children go to that private school or that parochial school, meaning a school that is associated with a church or a religious institution, when they go to a private or parochial school, yes, those same conditions follow them, but they don't report what's happening in that school. So what happens with the public schools, when we have issues with children, when we have disciplinary issues, we document that. It becomes part of the record. And then the record begins to show how many students were suspended, how many students were in school suspension, how many students have IEPs, how many students have behavioral concerns, how many students are on medication. We document those things. But the white schools and the private schools and the parochial schools, they don't document it. So they can tell the lie that the school is different. They can tell the lie that the school is better. They can create a narrative that this is the good school that you need to go to, because they continue to do what white inhumanity has taught us to do, and that is to live in a delusion.
Caller, you on the air?
Well, thank you so much. Good morning, Sister Denise.
Good morning.
To the listening audience and those on the web. I just want to add a little something to the conversation. I'm glad to know that Wendell was referring to the historical account of Brown versus Board of Education to parents. I'm a product of the Little Rock School District, Arkansas public school system, if you will. Our father did intervene at one point and denied me an entire school year. That is what they referred to when they closed the school. That was the first year of integration at Central High School. Orange Green graduated that particular year, but the next year they closed the school. I'm a product of that. It's just very traumatic. So it's been the first year, I would have been in the 10th grade. Now, I didn't go to school at all that year, so that has a very, very tough effect on a person, especially a young black male. Now, getting to the point, if we are to be successful in combating this Learns Act and all of those different ways of marginalizing and taking advantage of our communities by the legislature, we're going to have open and candid participants. It's going to have to be on the table, not under the table. No one person knows everything. We're going to have to share knowledge, experiences, information. We're going to have to acknowledge our mutual objectives, if you will, and come together to nothing new because this is something that they've been doing for years. I always say the future is the past, enter through a different door. And as you can see, and as you explained, that's exactly what they're doing today. If they're going back to pre-1954, just think about it. You mentioned that vouchers were given out during the year the schools were closed. Well, I don't know anybody that got them because I didn't get them. I went to school. I was in the same grade with, you might remember Dr. Phillips, the Captain Mitchell, Sterling Ingram, who rose to good levels in the education department. Richard Mays, who was also a member of my class, who went on to school and graduated. But I don't know of anybody that got vouchers. So if these so-called legislators are doing this, then they're going to do the same thing over and over again. And all the vouchers probably went to the white community because the black kids went to school down in Wrightsville, some went to North Little Rock, some went to Scott, and different other places. You might know right across the street from where we play dominoes, Faye Perry Rush. She went to school out of the city. Contact these folks, they'll tell you exactly what happened. There were no sharing resources at that time, and I'm imagining they're not going to share them at this time, especially if they've got a way of getting rid of all of our good teachers. I don't know the teachers that were bad per se. I knew some administrators that was terrible, but most of the teachers were very objective and committed to trying to empower the students. We had great relationships with teachers and students and good results. If I can remember correctly, when we were going to school in a segregated area, but I never went to an integrated school, and I don't know from experience exactly what occurred, how it goes on. I have in recent years had children and grandchildren go to integrated schools, but if they produce people like Sheriff Humphrey Sanders, then you just know that something ain't right because the proof to put this in the case. Now I'll leave it at that, and I hope someone can come back and verify what I said, because everything I've said so far has been the truth. And I just want to add that candor. We've got to be extremely honest and undertake these initiatives. We don't have to have anything under the table. Everything we need to do is going to be on top of the table. And we need the participants of everybody. I don't care who it is. If they have knowledge, wisdom, experience in these areas, we need them to come up, and especially those who went to these integrated schools and know what the dealings are. Because I never interacted with the enemy on those terms. And thank you so much. But I am a product of the education system of Arkansas. And it's not just the Little Rock School District, it's the whole state, because that's who runs everything. And thank you so much for the time, and I hope everybody will have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you, man. And let's be clear on one thing. You know, I know I've listened to so many people talk about this Learns Act, and you know, those in favor, those who are against it. And the one thing I want people to understand, the minute that this bill, the minute she put pen to paper yesterday, it became, to me, I almost say a free for all, but middle class white parents, you know, to me, they are already putting their bid in. They're already putting their name down because they claim, even when they open it up, and you know, the first year is going to be for those with special needs, those who parents are in military service, then in special circumstances. Then the second year, they're going to open up a little more, and the third year is going to be open to all students across the state. Where they, from my understanding, they say it's only going to be 14,000 vouchers. So if there's only 14,000 vouchers, that means it's going to be a waiting list. You know, that you're going to have to be on this waiting list. I cannot confirm or deny this, but I believe that when it comes to black students getting these vouchers that they want, zip code gonna play a part in it. where you live is going to play a part in how these vouchers are going to get done. Because let's face it, and we just talked about, we're talking about it now. This system has never done anything that's going to help educate black children. It's not. They didn't design it for that, But they did design it to make money off of black students. And this is part of it, is that this is a money maker, and the people that are going to benefit are middle class whites who had long wanted to be able to send their children into schools that are less urban, as they say, or less black, and they just didn't have the money. I think we talked about, the guy that used to call in from up in Northwest Arkansas, who claimed that he worked 3 jobs to send his kids to, a Christian school, because he didn't like public schools. Well, now you're going to open it up to where these white students can go to these religious schools or these private schools. And you talked about indoctrination, that one of the executive orders that the governor made was that she didn't want our children to be indoctrinated. Well, now that's, to me, that's hypocritical, because what does religious schools do? They indoctrinate.
I think we should be even more clear if we're going to drill down and be clear about what's really happening. It wasn't when she put pen to paper that the middle class parents were sitting on ready and now they're moving. It was the middle class parents who caused her to even design the act to begin with. So those 14,000 vouchers already have names on them. We're not waiting for them to get the names now. They already have names on them. And those parents were the ones who were pushing her through the system of the Republican Party. They've been pushing for this long before Sarah Huckabee Sanders became governor. And so she's nothing more than a puppet in this game that they're playing with our lives, how they're using us as pawns in this game to secure, to keep hold to the power that they think that they have, that is constantly being revealed to them, that is fleeting. Right. And so I don't want anybody to think that, oh my goodness, let me get myself together so I can get my name on this list and get this voucher. That's not going to happen. I'm not saying you won't get one, but it's going to be some shenanigans going on in order for you to get one, so that they can look good, so that they can try to prove a point. That's the only reason that you would get it. And so we have to be clear that when we look at what's happening in the legislature, this stuff is not happening in real time. It's already decided before they show up for work that day.
And then another thing we also have to understand, it's going to be a domino effect, because you have to pay for this. You have to pay for this extra. You're talking about $50,000 minimum salary for teachers across the state, which means there's going to be a lot of rural school districts, and especially rural black and white school districts, who don't have enough tax base to facilitate $50,000 a year for a teacher. So the state said that for the first 2 years, they're going to fund it. Well, where's this money going to come from? Then also, if you got this voucher system, I can't think of the numbers now. They talked about the millions of dollars this going to cost year to year. So where's that money going to come from? You cut taxes. You've been, Governor Hutchinson has cut taxes. And Governor Sanders, more than likely, she will cut more taxes. So where's this money going to come from? So that means that if you put in public dollars earmarked for education, and now those dollars are going to vouchers, they're going to charter schools, which is going to limit money for public schools. And so somewhere along the line, to be able to afford this Learns Act, now you got to, like I say, you got to cut tax, you got to cut money, you got to cut budget somewhere else. That means that services is going to be cut. That means you got to get people off of Medicaid, Medicare, because part of it is funded by the state. You got to get people off of unemployment. You got to get people off of unemployment because that's funded by the state. You have to, other services are going to be cut because that's funded by the state. So when you hear this idea of, yeah, this is a great thing, but you're not looking at somewhere along the line, somewhere something else got to be cut.
Well, I'll tell you what's not going to be cut, and that's going to be law enforcement.
Oh no.
Because all of these things that you are talking about that are going, the domino effect, then it's going to cause people to live in situations of lack. And when you are living in situations of lack, it fosters desperation. And so people are going to begin to behave in ways that they feel they have to in order to survive. So when survival instincts kick in, you are willing to do whatever it takes to feed your children. You are willing to do whatever it takes to keep a roof over your head. You are willing to do whatever it takes to survive. Yeah, it's survival instincts. And so then that pushes you towards more entanglement with the criminal injustice system. And so they are going to continue to fund that. We must be clear on that. We must be clear. And then who are the ones who are most disproportionately affected by law enforcement? Now we're talking about black bodies. I ain't talking about no poor white people right now. I'm talking about black bodies, and not just black men, black women, black children, black bodies. And if we want to talk about black trans women, then they are the ones, all of us are the ones who are going to be affected by this. And so that's why it's so important for us not to just focus on the LEARNS Act at itself, to not just focus on this bill. We have to talk about what's happening on a broader scale, and it is the genocide, that's the word, of black folks.
And we already know it's already in the works that they want to build another prison, here in Arkansas. They want to fund more jail expansions so that, because they know, like you said, as things progress, there's going to be more of these issues. And so when you're not looking at, if you're just looking at this one corner of a picture, you're missing the rest of the picture. Carl.
Hey, what's up, Brother Tony?
Hey.
Hotel, Mr. Denise.
What's up?
2 points. We got to understand this is a system, and the LEARNS Act is just the tip of the iceberg. I don't know if you follow the governor of the one in Ohio and Ron DeSantis in Florida, and it's part of Alex that they're now requiring that all state jobs, you don't have to have a bachelor's degree, a college degree. You don't even have to have a high school diploma. So that's part of the big picture in trying to address those underdeserved and underclass white folks, okay? Because we know what's going on with white folks. We already got a jail cell waiting for us, okay? And so using that number of 14,000, if I could just take a conservative number of first student ratio that the state pays in $7,000, that's $98 million that we're talking about for the vouchers. So it ain't about the education, it's about the money. And we as black folks, if you ain't registered to vote, don't register to vote and make your vote count. Because as long as you keep putting these folks back in office, we're going to keep getting the same thing over and over again. And the minimum said it the best, but you remember all the time, there's nothing new under the sun. With that, you can bless yourself.
Thanks, Hotel. And something else that's interesting about this whole thing, and well, it's interesting, but it's something that we expected. That most of us who are community organizers, who are fighting for the Black collective, we already knew. One thing that people were pushing back with this bill is the fact that it was being rushed through. It was just being rammed through. And even, here's the crazy thing, well, that's not crazy. Even these legislators who voted for it came out and said that, I have concerns that it's being rushed through. I haven't read it. It's just, it's something that we need to look at, but I'm voting for it. And so now you have this bill that has so many open areas that now you're going to go back and fill in the blanks.
No, they're not. What makes you think they're going to go back and fill in the blanks?
When I say go back and fill in the blanks, because in the bill, it's not talking about who's going to monitor it, who's gonna, how are you going to, if you homeschool, how, is that money going to be given directly to the parent? And at what type of guidelines, what type of structure, that's not in there. So when I say fill in the blanks, now you're going back and you're going to try to put in all that information.
And what I'm suggesting is that they're not going to go back and fill in all that information. Once the bill is passed, it's done. It's done. So they don't have to. That would be up to us, going back to what Mac was saying when he called in. That would be up to us as the community to force them to do that work, because they don't have to now. It's a law. They don't have to figure it out. They can do what they do now, like just whatever the situation calls for.
They do an amendment.
Yeah, or an amendment. Or when it comes to you, when you come to them and ask a question, they'll answer you however they want to answer you. If I come ask a question, they can answer me however they want to answer me, because there's no structure in place. So they can do things according to however they want to, and they don't have to be held accountable for developing a method and a process and a procedure. And so that would be up to us to force them to fill in the blanks. But left on their own, I don't believe that they're going to fill in any blanks. They don't have to. It's a law.
Well, I think what I'm looking at is the fact that there's an old adage that says you never know there's a problem until there's a problem. And so one of the things they kept saying is that once the bill passed, we're going to go back and we're going to see what we need to do to tweak it or whatever. But what's going to happen, because if it's just left open. So as a parent, so what's going to happen is I send my kid or send my child, I get a voucher to send my child to this private school. This private school said after October 15th, hey, you know what? Your child got in trouble. Your child broke one of these rules of the school. So now we're going to kick him out. So now you got to send that child back to public school.
But that's a problem. That's not a problem we don't know. That already happens. That happens right now. The Learns Act did not bring that to the table. It was already on the table. Lisa Academy does that. Every one of these white-led voucher schools, public charter schools, all of them do that. So when you say you don't know there's a problem until there's a problem, we do know it's a problem already. We're not waiting for the Learns Act to show us there's a problem. We know it's a problem.
I'm not saying that we're waiting on the Learns Act to show us a problem. What I'm saying is that because of the way it would push through, because of the all these other intangibles that's not there, you give them the opportunity to create what they want to create. You give them an opportunity to put in whatever they want to put in. And now the people who are going to suffer a lot, if you homeschool your children, and you say you had 2 children and you getting, $14,000, $15,000, you get the money and say, you know what? I want to send my child to school, to public school. I can't homeschool them. What happens? Do you keep that money? Do you return that money? None of that is in there.
And I'm saying that's by design, because when you as a Black parent come and say, hey, I don't want to homeschool my children anymore, I'm going to make you pay that money back. Somebody white comes in and says, I don't want to homeschool my children anymore. You don't have to pay it back. They get to determine based on the situation what they want to do, and they're going to favor who they want to favor because there's no policy and procedure they have to follow. You can't hold them accountable. Accountable to what? That's why they're not going to fill in the blanks unless we make them. And that's when you talk about we paying for the seat. We need to put our money to work. We need to be making sure that this happens, because if we don't, it's not going to, because they have no desire to fill in the blanks, because it works in their favor not to fill in the blanks.
I see your point on that. Yes, I agree with you there. And so that's why it's so important that we have to get engaged. And like I said, that's why it was encouraging to me to see these young people engaged, to see them sign up to register to vote, to see them standing up and voicing their, using their voices and using their actions to try to to let us know that, hey, we're not going for this anymore, and we want to do something about it. But if we're waiting, one thing that was said to me yesterday from a student from Central, he was like, thank you for coming out to support us. We need more, as he said, the older generation to come out and support what we're doing. I don't know who said it, but the revolution is for the young. It's the young people who have to push change. It's the young people who have to help facilitate change. And we, as the older generation, we need to come alongside of them to help them, not tell them, not try to tell them what back in the day we did it this way. No. However way you want to do it, we need to come alongside and help push you in that direction.
Well, that's similar to what happened to me yesterday when I was walking out of the classroom. One of the assistants to the teacher said to me, I really appreciate you coming, and I really appreciate you coming and making it plain, saying the things that need to be said and giving them an opportunity to talk about what they need to talk about. So yes, all of us have a role that we have to play. And that's one of the things that I think is plaguing our teachers, that those of us who are not educators are kind of sitting back saying, oh my goodness, it's a bad day to be a teacher. Oh my goodness, I don't know how they're going to make it. Oh my goodness, look at what's happening to them. Oh my goodness, they need some power. But what are we doing to help them, to support them in what we see unfolding right before our eyes? And so all of us have a role to play in all of what is happening to us. We got to get up and take responsibility for the role that we need to play and play it.
Call you in there.
Yes, peace and love to all. Russell being here. Now, it's always said that knowledge is neutral, but it's how we use the knowledge that we've gained and for what purpose it is used. Now, what we've learned through this is they are refining and maintaining their system of white supremacy racism. Now, the counterpart is how do we, and I'm pointing at reparations again, how do we get compensation for reparation and let them go on about their business and balance the money part of it to where we can really balance it by in our own. And I'm just to the point to say we need to divorce the school systems and everything else and get our own system together where we can teach our own. Now, this compensation part for reparation, I think, would kind of put a balance, because as long as they are maintaining and doing what they do, we're going to have this system. But if we can somehow get our intellectuals or progressive intellectuals to come up with a way to produce some kind of legislation, that's what the book says all starts, about reparation, to where we can say, okay, y'all got y'all monies, we got our monies, we can put our monies into those areas that is needed the most and balance this whole situation. And the biggest thing is the elimination of the system of white supremacy racism. Because as long as they got there, still, we're going to steady be going at this the way they want us to. Like I say, if knowledge is neutral, we can use the knowledge that we gain to neutralize the situation. Again, peace and love to all.
Well, I think that speaks to the comment about education. I think it was Hotep who said that they're getting to the point where you don't have to have a degree in order to receive some certain jobs. And so I am a product of formalized education. And so I know that I have been taught to be complicit with the system of white inhumanity. I understand that clearly. I can think back on and I can reflect on my life and talk about all the ways that I have been complicit. I'm still learning and I'm still trying to undo and all of that work. But one of the things that you don't have to get from formalized education is your understanding of who you are as a Black person. And so what's happening with us is that we don't have the education that we need about who we are. We have not grabbed hold to the brilliance and the divinity and the sacredness of our own Black souls. So you're putting me in a place, not just where I'm uneducated formally, and I'm uneducated consciously. And so now I am going to continue to push forward the system of white inhumanity because I'm just grateful to have a job. I'm just grateful to be in this position. I'm just glad that the Lord chose me for such a time as this to be in this space. And so I don't believe that you have to be educated formally in order to be proficient, in order to be effective, in order to be productive, in order to be transformational. But I do think that you have to have an education around who you are, so that when you are in those positions, you will not be used. You will not allow yourself to become a tool. You will not be complicit because you understand who you are. And so if we're going to talk about how we divest, which is what Solar Beam is saying, how do we divest from this system and create our own? First of all, we have to understand the power of having our own system. And many of us are not having that conversation. We just glad to be in the number with the white folks. And that's part of the problem. So how do we begin to wake up? How do we begin to educate each other? How do we begin to see the power of Blackness? And how do we begin to wield that power as a weapon so that we can demand and get what it is that we need, that get what we deserve? Not what it is what we need, but it's also what we deserve. It's what's rightfully ours. How do we raise up in order to make that happen? And that comes through the education of self. I'm not talking about the education that they're offering at these schools, which, we can talk about whether or not, we can talk about that later, the quality of their education. But how do we educate ourselves about the power of ourselves? That has to become part of this question if we're going to talk about divestment, because there's no need of you giving many of us right now in the state that we are in our consciousness around Blackness. It's no need of you giving us our own stuff, because if you give it to us now, we're not going to do anything but destroy it, because we are not mentally prepared to grow it. And that has to be part of our conversation.
And another thing I want everybody to understand, this Learners Act is not the only law, bill, or amendment being pushed. Sometimes we get distracted on one thing, and that's by design. I want you so focused on this that you don't see the other stuff that we're pushing through, that by the time you realize it, like it's over. The bathroom bill that they're trying to push through, which is just ridiculous, which is aimed at transgender people. They want to criminalize that if you go into a bathroom of I don't want to say opposite sex, but if you are transgender. And
you go to the restroom that aligns with who you
right.
are, and that's different from what you were assigned at birth, what's on your birth certificate.
Right. And so if you go in this bathroom and there's a minor present and you stay in there knowing that there's a minor present, then you can be criminalized. You can be charged with a criminal act of indecency. And so they're trying to push that through. They're trying to pass a bill that in November during the general election, the people voted against this bill that would require a higher threshold for signatures on petitions. And so now what they did is come back and say, where it used to be, all you needed was 15 signatures from 15 counties. Now they want signatures from 50 counties.
But we voted against that. And so that's what I want to do. I want somebody to help me write that. They tried to do the same thing with the minimum wage. So that's the law that I wanted the people to put on the books that say, once we vote it down, you don't get to change what it is that we said. Let me get this comment in. Here's Phyllis Brown. On September 12th, 1958, Governor Faubus closed all Little Rock, Arkansas high schools for a year rather than allowing desegregation to continue, leaving 3,665 Black and white students without access to public education. During this year, 93% of white students were given vouchers for private schools to accommodate displaced white students. No private schools for Black students emerged. The Learns Act / vouchers repeats what Faubus did, and this is not happening only in Arkansas.
No.
But listen, this is the part that was key to me. No private schools for Black students emerged. But we don't expect the system to do that. But what I feel like I hear Solar Beam calling us to ask is, why didn't we do that?
Right.
And why aren't we doing it now? Where are our schools that we are creating for our students?
And you brought up a good point a minute ago. That's why it's so great to have conversation around these issues. Is when you said that it would be detrimental almost to Black people to be given these this system now, or to create a new system, because we haven't learned how to handle it. We haven't been taught how to handle it. It would be detrimental to us. It reminds me of when you had a poor black person, who is male or female. All of a sudden they become rich. They become this athlete, and they have this money, and because they never had it, all the next thing you know, they end up being in all these different situations where it's detrimental to them. And so I do agree with you on that. Hey, looking up, it's time for us to go. I didn't realize, caller, I'm sorry I can't get to you, but thank you for tuning in. All of you, thank you for calling. Thank you for the comments on Facebook. Tune in Monday for from 4 to 5 for Down with That with me and Neil. Next Tuesday for Community Voices with Denise and me, and next Thursday for The Workplace with me and Denise. Hey, have a great weekend. Talk to you later.